येषां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोतं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि।
Namaste, welcome to KYG or Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for this beautiful class in the Yoga Sutras. I am sitting at the foothills of Marudamalai, a beautiful temple, an ancient portal dedicated to the son of Shiva.
Om Sharavana Bhava, Om Sharavana Bhava, Om Sharavana Bhava.
And therefore seeking his blessings and inspired by a divine yogi who lived here, who helped bring this portal to us, the knowledge of this portal, the energy and the power of the portal to us more than 1,000 years ago, to that yogi known as Pambatti Siddhar. He was a perfected being whose samadhi as well is at the foothills of this hill. And therefore seeking his divine blessings, I'm here to share my humble perspectives on this very profound sutra, the third sutra. Tada drishtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Tada drishtu swarupe avasthanam. Tada drishtu swarupe avasthanam. Tada. Tada is at that time, at that moment. What moment? When chitta vritti nirodha happens. So this is in continuation of the previous aphorism. When the nirodha happens, nirodha, the nirodha state takes place and there is no more vrittis on the chitta, the obvious question would be, what then? And therefore Patanjali leads us to that state. Before I begin explaining, please know that the first 4 verses, the first 4 aphorisms of the Yoga Sutras is pretty much a summary of the entire Yoga Sutras. And therefore it is important we take time to understand these 4 sutras. And the rest of it is, how do we get here? How do we get to Chitta Vritti Nirodha state? And what is this state that he is going to introduce us to? What happens at that state? So this is Tada Drishtu Tada, at that moment. At what moment? When the Nirodha happens. Drashtaha, the drashta, the seer. Tada drashta swarupe. The seer withdraws into his true self. The simple meaning of this aphorism is, at that moment, at that time, tada, the seer withdraws unto himself. Avasthanam, that state. He enters into a state where he withdraws into his real swarupa, into his real swarupa. Swa means self, rupa means form. Of course, form is not technically a form with hands and feet or an object, but that real self, we'll understand what that real self is, hopefully get an idea of it in this. So the drashta, the seer, withdraws at that moment into his swarupa, his real self, established in his real self. Vyasa explains this beautifully. The seer, the soul, the jiva, the seer, however we want to call it. Right now I'll technically stick to the word seer because drashta, Patanjali used the word drashta. Vyasa explains that as Chiti Shaktir. Chiti Shaktihi, the energy behind the chitta, the one that empowers Chitta for all of this, right? That spirit is unsullied, immortal, eternal. That enters into a state, Vyasa calls it Kaivalya. We'll come to that. But the beauty here is the definition of Drashta. Who is the seer who withdraws into his real state? And the question is, what is then the Swarupa? What is that real state he withdraws into? In a simple manner, if we understand this, it simply means where there is nothing more to see, the seer withdraws into his self. When we say, I'm just spending time with myself, when we say that, we understand that Sundar is spending time with his thoughts, with his emotions, with his feelings, right? Which is right. But this is far beyond that. So let us not get confused with myself as how we colloquially use myself. Here the seer withdraws into his real self. And that is where the beauty of this teaching lies. I listened to many teachers over the last 20, 30 years. I have contemplated and meditated upon this very fundamental and vital sutra. I consider it a very great fortune that I am teaching it at this powerful portal of the 6 chakras, the 6 heads of Murugan. So, what does Drashta mean? Who is the seer? You might say, well, obvious. I mean, I am the seer, the one who's seeing is the seer. Yes. But let us take an analogy. Consider an analogy to understand what this seer means. So I'm borrowing this from one of the many interpretations I've heard, and I think this one is from Swami Nikhilananda of the Chinmaya Mission, who gave a good analogy for me to grasp the idea. So I pay my respects to him as I share this knowledge. The analogy is like this. You are watching me now on your screen. Let us call that the television screen. Okay, it could be the iPad, it could be the phone, but I'll just call it the TV screen. You are watching me on the TV screen. Not only are you watching me on the TV screen, but it's not just me, right? On the TV screen, there is this path that is going behind me. There are these shrubs, and there is that beautiful temple tower of the Marudumalai Murugan, and all of these, the beauty of the nature is also caught in that screen. So in other words, the manifold creation, if you will, is being projected on the screen along with me. Who is the seer of that manifold creation on the screen? You might say, well, it's me, I am seeing it. So I am the seer. Okay. If you are seeing me, let us take the screen away. If I take the screen away, then all of this manifold creation that is projected on the screen is gone. And since you have nothing to see, are you still the seer? Hold on to that thought. So who is the one who is actually seeing? Can I see without the screen? Can you see without the screen? No. All right. So then you are not the seer, right? Or you being the seer is only partially correct. Because without the screen you cannot see. In other words, without the lens of perception, we cannot see. We need to perceive. So the TV screen is that. What is the missing link here? The screen on which this manifold creation, the scenery that you are seeing is being projected. So is the screen the seer? Is your TV screen the seer? Because it is the one who is absorbing this and reflecting that. Is the mirror, the TV screen, the seer? Well, no. Because the TV screen, it's being projected on itself, the screen itself cannot look at what is being projected. So the screen is not the seer. So who is the Drishta? What does Patanjali here mean by Drashta? Drashta, therefore, and understand this carefully, think about it. You don't have to grasp it right away. I am doing my best to explain it in as simple a manner as possible. Drashta, therefore, is a combination of two things. The person who is watching, that is you, and the screen. You and the screen together become the drashta. So the drashta is not, don't misunderstand the word drashta as the supreme seer. No. This is not the Purusha that Patanjali refers to, or the Ishvara that he later on defines. This is not that. This is the drashta, which is a combination of the mirror in which the universe is projected, the lens of perception, in this case analogy, the TV screen, and you together become drashta. So the definition of drashta is not just me, but the lens on which the entire universe is being projected, which I am perceiving. So together we become the drashta. So understand that. That drashta now gets established in his real self. When does that happen? Tada. When Nirodha state happens. We are talking of the ultimate Nirodha state now. When Nirodha happens, when even that little one vritti that we talked about in the last aphorism merges. So in this analogy, let us say that power goes off. When you're watching the TV screen, you're watching me in the middle of the night. Just an analogy, right? So the power goes off. So what happens if the power goes off? You can't see the screen. There is nothing being projected on the screen, and it is so dark you can't see yourself as well. So nothing remains. When nothing remains, then this drashta, this combination of screen and me, I go and get established in my real self, and that real self is the Purusha, is the Ishvara. The Ishvara beyond any, the Ishvara beyond any multiplicity, the one Ishvara. Everything gets absorbed into him. The Purusha, the seer also gets absorbed into his self, and the true self is the Ishvara. So who is the real self of the drashta? Ishvara is the real self of the drashta. Tada drashtuhu swarupe. Swarupe, his real form. Avasthanam, avastha, he enters that state of oneness. That state of oneness is what Vyasa calls Kaivalya. It was this aphorism that inspired me to name the path that I follow, the path that I am sharing with you all through satsangs, through chants, through meditations, through rituals, through yoga practices. This is the path of Kaivalya, oneness. The true self, where the Ishvara is established in his self. So that is what Vyasa says, Chite Shaktir Yatha Kaivalye Swapratishtha Tadanim Chiti Shaktir Yatha Kaivalye. That state of the true self of the drashta, the being established in that state, that avastha that Patanjali talks about, is Kaivalya. That's it. That is the beauty, the power of our next stage in this evolution. Being a human and experiencing a part of this reality through the senses is living an incomplete life. Because the senses do not give us the whole picture, we have desires to yearn more, to taste more, to see more, to listen more, to touch more, and that more we get caught up in that web of wanting more, experiencing more. But deep within, we are searching for our true home, our true self, Swarupe. And that happens in Nirodha state. In Nirodha state, the drishta, the seer, along with the mirror and along with this manifold creation that is existing, everything disappears. So if I want to connect this to the previous aphorism, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, in that screen there is only one thing that finally you are seeing, the eye. Only one vritti exists, and then that also goes off. When that happens, then there is pure existence. Sat. In order to explain this primordial principle, the highest state of evolution, where we find our home and rest in our true home. Our true home means our true self, the Ishvara self. They have the story of Shiva. What does Shiva do? Let us understand the symbolism of Shiva, because Shaivism is the oldest form of religion, if you will, quote unquote, that gave birth to excuse me. Shaivism is the oldest form of religion that gave birth to all the other forms of spiritual thought. And that Shaivism thought is based on this fundamental principle that Shiva is that Ishvara. We have to understand that, right? Because all of this is so formless and so beyond our thought. In order for us to grasp it, we bring it down in the form of symbols and understanding. So Shiva is deep in meditation. That is what we hear in the Puranas. What does that mean? Shiva is lost in his self. Swarupe, Avasthanam. He is in the state of Kaivalya. When I say he, it doesn't mean he versus she. I'm just using a word he, just for reference. We might as well say it also. Because Shiva is lost in the state of Kaivalya. Who knows he is lost? Nobody knows. Does he know he is in the state of Kaivalya? Even he doesn't know. There is no I to know the state of Kaivalya. Just think of that for a moment. Why am I sharing this? Is because we might say, I want to experience Kaivalya. I wish to experience Kaivalya. Guess what? That ain't going to happen. Why? Because there is no I in Kaivalya. There is only Kaivalya. Who experiences Kaivalya? No answer. Who knows he is in that state of Kaivalya? So Shiva is lost. That is why it is said, Sat Chit Ananda. Sat is existence. That existence, even existence is not aware of its existence, because there is no consciousness that makes existence aware. And therefore, the Shakti principle manifests from that existence as consciousness. To make Shiva aware of himself, Shakti emerges. That is a symbolism of Shiva and Shakti. That is why in the Puranic story, if you will, Shakti is the one who gives power to Shiva. Shakti is the one who makes Shiva realize who he is, eternal principle, eternally existing. Shakti is the one who makes him aware. And that Shakti emerges from that Shiva, merges into Shiva. So Shiva, Shakti, Sat, Chit. And that experience of Shiva and Shakti is Ananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is existence. Swarupe Avasthanam, Kaivalya, existence. Chit is being conscious of that existence. So we have already moved from that ultimate principle. We have come one step lower. Now there is two. Purusha and Prakriti, Shiva and Shakti, Yin and Yang. And once there is two, there is multiplicity. Okay? Once Shakti comes, creation happens. Then there is Mahat, and then there is Ahankara, and the three gunas happens. All of this I have talked about in the Kaivalya Marga class in the beginning stages, explaining the Sankhya philosophy. So all of that happens when one becomes two, then multiplicity. Two means multiplicity. So Sat and Chit, the experience of that getting Sat and Chit together itself is Ananda, but this state of Kaivalya that Patanjali explains, Tadaha Drashtu Swarupe, the Drashta, the seer, withdraws unto himself. He goes back to that pure Shiva state. Shivoham, 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 Shivoham. Aham Brahmasmi. Only Shiva remains. Only Shiva remains. Nama Shivaya. The Ma, the I and the mine is gone. Na, it is not there. No Nama. No Ma. Nama Shivaya. Only Shiva remains. That is the beauty of this beautiful aphorism. Tada drashtu swarupe avasthana. Thank you for giving me this divine opportunity. Namaste.
क्लीं कैवल्यनाथाय